Hello and welcome back to the KCCMH Connection. Today we are joined by two physicians whose story is woven into the history of healthcare in Kit Carson County. Years ago, local benefactors invested in two young students with the hope that they would one day come home to care for their community. They did exactly that. More than 25 years later, they've been the foundation of family medicine at Kit Carson County Memorial Hospital, caring for generations of families while also sharing the responsibilities of leading our medical staff. Today, we're excited to hear the story behind the remarkable commitment made by Dr. Zach Pimintel and James Perez. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you for being here. So, both of you received support from the community to attend medical school with the promise that you would return home. Can you tell us how that opportunity came about?
My dad had a big part in it. For me, being a local, he knew a banker, and he told me once we got accepted to medical school, how are you going to pay for it? Because we had no funds. And he said, I know this good banker, maybe he'll give us a low interest rate loan. And so we ended up meeting with Charlie Baker. He used to be at the Bank of Burlington. And Charlie was not aware of the situation, and he finally did become aware and said, if you're really going to go to medical school, we might be able to help you better than a loan. And that's where we initially made contact with Rotary Club and set up a meeting to discuss, what options we could do, how we could figure things out for us to, get help with finances, but for us to also come back. And in that Rotary Club, there was a gentleman that had another organization, and he ended up saying he would like to do it with the minimal paperwork, because the Rotary Club was going to get a lawyer paperwork, about 10, 12 pages of, contracts. And the gentleman that wanted to proceed said, I would just like a handshake, because if I don't like them, I don't want to be tied to them for X number of years.
Oh, wow.
And so he ended up kind of developing a program that says, we'll pay for your school if you come back for at least 1 year. And it was all based on a handshake. When I was having that discussion with them, that's when they found out that I had a colleague, and, oh, there's two of you? And I said, yeah, there is. And so he got on board, and that's how the whole situation started.
So I would say my version of it is Dr. Perez, he was further ahead than I was. We were both accepted already. It was the summer of '96, is that what that was? And so I was actually working for the city at that time, one of my summer jobs. It was a super good job. And at that time, I personally was not really sure how I'd pay for medical school. I was accepted already, kind of kicking things around. He kind of told me a bit what was going on with his side of it, but not really sure about it. I was out there kind of just helping to build one of the baseball fields, Mr. Rovat's baseball field. And at that time, my foreman was Tracy Tillman. And I had told him already I was going to go to medical school. He knew Raw Hudler, the mayor, and told him, hey, you know what, we've got this kid over here, and he might be going to medical school also. I said, I'm going to be going to medical school. And so Raw Hudler approached me at that time, and, Perez, Rhoda just going already. And he asked me, hey, we kind of got this thing going already with Dr. Perez. Are you interested? And I'm like, I kind of heard a little bit about it, but not really quite sure yet. But heck, scholarship money.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm going to listen to it. And so that's how I came into it. So for me, it was more kind of just looking for opportunities, and this came up.
So did you guys always know you wanted to be doctors?
If you ask my dad, yeah, he knew he was going to be a doctor since elementary school. I always thought if I could do something like that for him as his firstborn, be happy to. But deep down inside, we grew up here. I grew up here working on the farm, and I thought I'm just going to follow my dad's footsteps. Mm-hmm. But I knew I had to give it a try, because if I didn't, I would let him down.
Yeah.
And so things worked out. Yeah, things worked out.
I would say personally, being a doctor is for me, it was take one step at a time. The first step was graduating high school. It was the first graduate in the family, so that was first step. After that, it was going to college, getting through that.
Yeah.
And then at some point, in college, kind of start thinking about what you want to be doing for the future. So for me, somewhere in college, I kind of made up my mind, this pre-med, being a doctor sounds really good, because, working at the city, just my personality always was, I enjoyed working with people, talking to people. And that appealed to me a lot. So it's it just seemed like a really good profession to kind of enter with my likes.
Mm-hmm. So are you guys both first generation college students?
High school graduates, actually.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting, because some people don't understand culturally the weight of that.
Right.
The significance or importance it brings to your family?
It was pretty daunting. I know in high school, when we started to get close to graduation, they would have career days. They would come in different colleges and offer different insight, pros, cons. And our friends would always talk about how, their parents are going to take them to this university campus and they went to this college or they did that. And we would look at each other and like, okay, So yeah, so it was quite a feat just graduating from high school, let alone applying for, college, universities, especially not knowing how you're going to pay for them.
Yeah.
I think by blind luck, it was done right because when Dr. Perez approached the Rotary Club and, I talked to Raul Hudler, by that point, we had been admitted to medical school already.
Yeah.
That was before any offer came up. And I can't imagine, like now the push is recruit these high school kids. I can't imagine trying to enter like some type of an agreement without being in medical school yet, because that's not a given. I think just the stress of putting that on a kid, like, hey, if you want to sign up out of high school, that's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, once you get into medical school, that big hurdle is over, but until you get there, it's a tough one.
Yeah. And even in medical school, I mean, rural communities, you're going to focus on primary care. You may go to med school and find out you want to be a neurosurgeon. You want to be an orthopedic surgeon. That would be great for specialty clinic, but it's not going to sustain, full-time out here. So yeah, starting from high school would be very difficult.
Right. Yeah.
I think the chances of you finding something different or deciding maybe you don't want that is pretty high.
Well, even in medical school, I don't know what the heck it is. I mean, it's not the easiest thing either. It's like, can you get through it?
Mm-hmm.
But once you're kind of in, you more or less have been kind of vetted, the material that it takes. And I mean, the chance of you not making it through is it's not zero, but pretty low.
Or you can get poached for any other specialty.
Yeah,
when you're doing neurology, we'll first question the attending, what are you going to specialize in? It's always a good idea to tell them I want to be a neurologist because your education goes a little better during that, 6 weeks of training. But yeah, I mean, you definitely can be lured in by any specialty at any time. I think it has changed since we went through, but they were just starting to transition. Primary care was still kind of the black sheep of medicine in general. They were trying to recruit more, and that's kind of why university med school got such a feather in their hat when two primary care people already vetted by the community with regard to money and all that. They could show, look, we're pro primary care, but if you go through the hospital systems, a lot of it was still pushing specialty, right? So
was there any point during your residency or medical school that you thought, maybe I'm not going to do primary care?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, you go through medical school, you like ER medicine, ortho, so at least you think about it a little bit, but it's like, it's in the end, you kind of just do what you think you want to do. Even like not so much just being poached by specialty, but just like other communities. I did a rotation up in Gunnison, up in Yuma, and they try to go ahead and, hey, we have a spot open for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like Gunnison looked pretty appealing. Yuma did for a little bit too, but it's like, yeah, I'm kind of taken already.
Yeah, I really toyed with the idea of ortho. I really liked ortho. Again, hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
You get to use tools like out here in the farm, and so I really liked ortho. But that commitment had been made, and I definitely feel comfortable staying with primary care.
Yeah. So what do you guys remember about your first days practicing here as young physicians?
The first days, huh? Well, surprisingly, it's not too stressful because the training kind of gets you ready for it. So as far as like the call goes and all that, you're more or less ready for it. Probably just the biggest thing is just like, it's a small town. Everything is so personal. Everybody kind of walk, through. They kind of know you at some level. That was probably the toughest thing. It's just very, very personal, just kind of both good and bad. But as far as the medical side of it, I mean, definitely you're still learning and everything, but the training, you're ready for it.
Yeah, you better be.
Right.
Yeah, but there's not much support. They kind of throw you out there. For me, yeah, like Pimentel says, yeah, I mean, my first ER visit was my old high school math teacher. He had come in for a medical condition, and so, so yeah, that small town feel for sure. And that's kind of one of the things is it draws you to the community because you are treating people that you're familiar with. And most of the time it was a plus. Sometimes it could be awkward, but for the most part, definitely a plus.
So people often think that family medicine means treating coughs and colds, but what does a typical day actually look like for a rural family physician?
That's a loaded question. It depends on the breadth of family medicine, the spectrum you do. like Pimentel was alluding to, our residency program in Greeley was geared towards doing everything, right? Including OB, C-sections, procedures. And so when we started here, I mean, number one, covering the ER, doing deliveries, endoscopy, EGDs, colonoscopies, because at the time we got here, they didn't really have anybody that was doing them.
You did colonoscopy?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we did colonoscopies and EGDs for probably, what, 10 years?
At least.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah. So we did those because there was nobody around and we were trained for them. It's not like we just made it up. You know, fracture care. I think in my first month here, I did more fracture care than I did throughout my whole residency.
So you got a little bit of ortho in there then?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then any kind of surgical procedure that you can do, either office-based or hospital-based. So, I mean, your day was full with clinic, call, OB, and then managing the nursing home locally for, you know, the geriatric side. So.
Wow.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I mean, a lot of it depends on where you're at because obviously the community is different now. We stopped doing OB like about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So it depends on, where you're at, depends on the hospital, the resources. But generally in a small town, it's pretty full spectrum.
So how do you guys think that practicing medicine in a small rural community might be different than a large city?
How we've only worked here, so it's hard to say.
Yeah. But you do clinicals and that in a big city?
I mean, I think like just you talk to like the PAs that are doing the ER. It's definitely once again more personal. It's more hands-on, and you have to be okay not having like all the resources and all the like specialists that you can refer to right away. So it's definitely, I would think, more exciting just because it is more hands-on. At the same time, it's also more challenging.
Right.
You have to be okay with that. Just like a few months ago, we had a woman with twins coming in preterm. We can't deliver babies at this point. Even back when we did, that was a pretty high-risk delivery. So we have to get her out of here. And it just took mobilizing the ambulance, nurses, everybody making a personal trip down I-70 and get her to Denver. Once she got there, the OB, they asked me all back and said that was a little bit out of the ordinary, and you guys did it. It's like, what else could you do?
Yeah.
You had to do it. So it's definitely exciting.
Yeah. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or practicing at the fringes of your, comfort level.
Yeah. The TNT guys talked about just being like the ultimate problem solvers because your resources are so limited.
Yeah. I know they've had a little bit of education when they first started. They kind of had maybe a different impression of what rural medicine, specific ER, and
They know now.
And talking to them, working with them now for several years, it's like, number one, volume is much more than what we thought. Chronic illness, pathology is as complicated as you're going to see in the big city, if not maybe even more, just because of the, restriction to healthcare. Some people tend to wait until the very last.
Yeah.
And they come in pretty sick and they have to be addressed pretty quickly.
So one of the unique things about rural medicine is that you care for entire families, sometimes maybe 4 or 5 generations. What has that been like?
Made you feel old. When you finally, we before we stopped doing OB, I did end up delivering a child from a lady that I delivered as a baby, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah, we've been here that long. Again, the continuity, I think for us, knowing our patient, knowing our family, what limitations, what issues, when you treat one, you kind of know how it's going to affect the others. And so that's kind of a plus. I saw that really when TNT was new and they would call a lot through the night about a patient. And just about everyone they called, I would know about, and I would review their history and tell them this, tell them that. And, this is a fallback. This is what you can do, don't do. And so that information is very powerful in taking care of that family.
Yeah. You basically know the family history because you've treated it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
I think probably more than just the medical side of it, though, is like it just kind of it lets you see really what medicine is because you see so much of it. You deliver a baby, for the young person in the family, and then at the other end, somebody's dying, like their grandpa's dying or somebody. And then if you're here long enough, you see a whole family grow and change, and you realize like a family letting you be part of their journey is pretty special. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that you deal with, divorce, just everything, and that they trust you to be that person to kind of help them through all that. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So when you see them coming in, it's like they're putting that trust in you, and you kind of want the best kind of help them through those difficult times.
Mm.
Yeah, that statement brought back a memory from cradle to grave statement.
Yeah.
Literally finished doing the delivery about 2 o'clock in the morning, and then I called down to my hospice patient and ended up pronouncing, an older person passing away. So it definitely
Yeah.
covered the whole spectrum. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's incredible. So after all these years, what keeps the work interesting?
I think avoiding burnout, number one, is very important. And that's why as we've gotten older in our practice, we've been modifying it to try and make it sustainable for us and hopefully make it more approachable to any new recruits that would be coming in.
By that, you mean like adding the TNT group to
Correct.
allow you guys to have more free time? I don't know how you want to say it. Less time than
less ER time
Yeah.
primary. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be important. Medicine, you never stop learning,
Mhm.
right? I always tell my patients, or when we work with residents or nursing students, if you ever get to the point where you think you know everything, that's probably the time you should retire because, yeah, you become obsolete at that point. And so it's always about learning. You learn something new, you do something different. Every day is different, right? And so that makes it pretty special.
I think what keeps it interesting is that you grow professionally, right? I mean, as a doctor, you learn new skills, but I think just as a person, you also grow yourself. And I think the medicine is it's your vocation, but it's also just part of your overall life. And for me personally, when I come in and see people now, it just looks different. When you're young, you're talking about procedures and medicine and pills. And now I just look at people, just life differently. You hope that you've matured as a person. If you have faith in your life, which I try to be a faithful person, you bring that into it. And with that, it just looks different. When somebody's super sick and you're helping him, getting that person home is, when you're a young intern, it's like, let's discharge the patient and get him home. And now it's like, let's get this person home to their family because you know them.
Yeah.
So I think it's more just like, it's part of your growth as a person that makes the job itself better because it just looks different.
Yeah.
And it has to, because you're not the same person anymore.
Yeah. And all of your experiences have just keep changing you as a person, evolving. So in addition to seeing patients, you both serve as chief of staff, rotating that responsibility over the years. What does that role involve that patients may never see?
Meetings, paperwork, administration, vetting other providers that come in, either as specialty providers or if we're looking at potentially new recruits, right? Addressing any internal problems with regard to how the hospital's running, staff, stuff like that. We provide at least some recommendations, input as to what we see and what we think we should do to fix it.
Yeah, and I would say, just adding on top of that, it's like there's a medical side of it and the admin part of it, and it's part of the profession, so it's your duty to see patients, but also be part of the medical staff, be part of the hospital. We have a really good board and CEO. They support us, and they expect some things also that are non-clinical, giving them advice and new protocols, decision making. So it takes a lot of time, but it's like your professional duty. And even something as simple as taking in like the interns and medical students, it slows you down a little bit, but at some point, somebody did that for you. So now it's your turn to kind of pay back the profession. So the administration side, you don't really get trained into it. There's no class back in medical school how to be the chief of staff or director of trauma, whatever. You just kind of start, you grow into that position. So it's like, it has its pluses and minuses for sure.
So here's probably the biggest question I'm going to ask you. How has the hospital changed since you first started practicing here?
Wow. Pretty open-ended. You go first this time.
So I would say it's changed, like, physically, and just like the strategy has changed. Obviously physically in addition back in 2008, and now we're getting ready to go ahead, have a brand new hospital if the funding comes through, which is super, super exciting. So that's one of it. It's like now, 26 years later, we're like the most senior staff members. Everybody has turned over.
Yeah.
And 100%. So that's changed. But, there's one basic thing I tell the medical students, or the interns, 2030, going back to like, say, Socrates or whatever, medicine doesn't really change all that much because the profession is still basically, it's a hands-on profession. So no matter how many computers we have and all this high-tech stuff, it's a pretty basic job description still. So that part will never change. Everything else is changing a little bit, I guess, but the actual profession, it hasn't changed one bit. It can't change. I mean, the computer thing does not really change what you do all that much.
Yeah. I mean, it's a community-based service, right? I always compare myself to a restaurant, to anybody that provides a service to other members in the community. And, we're no different. Sometimes the title, some people can look at it differently, but really you're here to take care of people. And I think maybe one of the biggest changes through the 26, 27 years here, soon to be that we've been here, is that culture has also improved. And the nursing level, clinic level, where people are truly starting to understand that we're here to take care of you, right? To provide a service for you. Try and do it in the most humane way possible, professional manner. Everybody has issues. Everybody has baggage. You could be having a bad day, but you try and check that out at the door because you're here to do your job. And I think to me, that's been the biggest changes. We're really trying to make it customer-based, right? Patient-based. It's about the patient. It's not about you and your headache or your bad day or your car broke down or whatever. It's about the person in front of you that's coming to see you for some kind of a treatment.
So do you think, going back to the culture piece, that what makes a better culture here is a mindset shift instead of my job, how can I help you?
Correct.
And you think you've seen that?
We're starting to. We've come a long way, especially with this new board and this new CEO. It really has made a tremendous change. I mean, it's given us hope. And I think that's the reason we're talking about a new hospital, right? Because again, we had this discussion before. You can have a fancy building, but if everybody in it doesn't treat you right, I don't care how fancy the building is, you come for care, not to see the building. And so you have to have that culture there that we're here to take care of you. It could be maybe in an old broken down hospital that doesn't have AC or heating and cooling appropriately, but if you get well cared for, people are still going to come see you.
Yeah.
I think the culture thing is kind of tricky because there's multiple players in that. But I will say one thing: if you're here 25 years, you realize one thing: the most important thing is not the facility and all that. It's actually the staff. And if everybody agrees with that very simple kind of principle, the culture improves. But we've been through admins where it was like that was not really clear to everybody. And, we lost some really good people. I think right now with the current board, the CEO, I think we kind of get that concept, the staff matters. So, and the certain type of staff also matters. Right now, I would say across the board, we have some really good people. Nursing, pharmacy. I think our drama meter right now is probably 0 or close to it. We've been at 10, and the top was 9. So it's a good place to be at right now. But again, the understanding has to be the staff is the most important part of your hospital.
Yeah.
In 10 years, new facility, if you can't staff it,
Doesn't matter.
it's not worth much.
Yeah, and staffing it with the right people.
The right people, that's the key right there.
Yeah. Or keeping the right people or recruiting the right people.
Yes.
All those things are important. Whereas before in the old culture, there was a lot of punitive actions going on. I report you before you report me. And it was just a very toxic environment that patient care was still important, but there was a lot of just survival. I want to keep my job. I want to make sure I don't get fired,
Mm-hmm.
And now that's totally gone, which has made it a much better environment.
I love that. So out of evolving at KCCMH.
Wow.
I would say a little bit of everything. I don't think there's one, again, we're all a team, right? So there's not one team that would be more of a standout than the other. I think having a board and a CEO that understands the culture, understands the importance of the people that work here at the hospital is paramount. I mean, you have to have that. I think the learning and the growth of our current staff has also come a long way. Those things, again, have made it nicer and more enjoyable to come in and work with. The kitchen, the housekeeping, I mean, everything has improved across the board, which if one department does great and we all do great, it's a win-win situation.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the improvements that I've seen is we've had some losses, right? Losing OB was huge. I mean, it's like you can't ignore that. So what have we done to make it better? There's a couple of things. Like one is just like the stroke treatment. We have the stroke robot, the CT scanners, just I would say stroke treatment right now is day and night. I mean, 20 years ago, you had a stroke, you were going to stroke, not much you could do about it. But now there is a lot that we can do. So I think like stroke treatment, it's way better. The ER care as a whole is just, I would say probably, I'm going to say east of Denver, I would say our ER is probably the best ER there is. I mean, having the, the TNT group in there, their skills are super. If you come into Burlington ER, it's going to be good care. It's just, we've shown that. So I think the ER medicine is really good. And just there's more focus on quality. Back in the day, it was like, things are always done this way, and a lot of things just kind of happen. It wasn't bad care, but now there's more, there's more basically check marks you have to kind of meet to get paid and all that. And I just think that right now, the attention to detail, that's a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The staff, I can't say we're better because that'd be insulting the staff from 20 years ago. That was great staff also. The nurses back in the day, they were great nurses. So you have to kind of give a shout out to the people that were here 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So I won't say the staff is better, it's just different staff. We've had a good staff, for 25 years.
Yeah. It's evolving. Yeah, but you have to evolve. You have to change. What was good 25 years ago is not going to be good now. You never stop learning because your career doesn't allow that. It's always changing.
Change is inevitable. So do you think that KCCMH has done a good job of just being flexible with change and making the best of it?
I think the other big plus, if you look at change right now, like I believe the first hospital was built like in the 1940s, like the initial.
Yeah, 1948.
Yeah, the initial kind of cinder block building in the 1970s. It had the golden wheat contribution and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it took about 70s to 2008, like almost 30 years. And now with us, the last edition in 2008 it was.
Mm-hmm.
So 18 years, here we go again. So I would say in general, just like we're a lot more progressive, more forward thinking. And I think nowadays you have to be.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you want to keep the doors open,
Yeah.
right now, rural medicine, the environment for rural hospitals, I mean, you read about, one is going to shut down. They're always on the verge of closing down. So you have to be flexible and progressive if you want to keep the doors open for the community to keep getting care.
But I will say also one thing, kind of bringing it back around. So a lot of changes. The story with Perez and I is great, right? But if you look at it, we're back to the same place we were at 30 years ago. I mean, at that time we had two doctors, Dr. Younger and Dr. Hoppy, and the goal was, it hasn't worked before. How do we get two more docs to get us like 4 or even more doctors? How do we bring doctors in? We're in the same exact spot. We're 25 years into it. We likely don't have 25 more years. And you can talk to our CEO, Brian, everybody. We've got some feelers out there. We have, as far as I know, nobody in the pipeline. So it's tough getting people back. In the last 10 years, I can think of at least, 2 Burlington grads who went to medical school, and they both specialized. We have 2 kids right now that are thinking medical school. They're thinking probably specializing. So after all said and done, we have the same problem.
Yeah.
How do we get docs back in here? In the last 25 years, we've had at least, 4 other docs?
4 or 5.
Yeah, and the question for us always was, you had the scholarship. How do we know you guys are going to stick around after the 4 years? And it's like, we really can't tell you guys unless we actually do it, which I think we've done it. 25 years is pretty good.
Yeah.
It's a little better than 1 year.
Right. But we had other docs, we had females, males. They lasted 4 years, and I started contract, and that was it. So it's definitely not for everybody. So the trick is, once again, identifying and the right person to bring back here. And that's still a tough, problem to solve.
Yeah, I know, part of the philosophy around here is that homegrown healthcare, and hopefully people from our community go to school and come back. Like you guys.
Once
set
again, we've
the
had
example.
2 homegrown that didn't come back.
No.
And we have 2 more homegrown that probably aren't going to come back. So there's more to it than that. I really
Yeah.
don't know how we change that, but obviously we have to do something because we're not immortal.
Mhm.
No, I think the next progression is going to be AI, right? I mean,
Yeah.
evolving. You're already starting to see that, but you're always going to need that human connection.
Right.
So, trying to recruit before our time runs out is important because that is, again, part of the staff that you need to keep the doors open.
Mhm. So do either of you guys have any stories, like a patient story that you just always go back to about, like, this is why I'm in medicine?
There's so many. I don't. The one story that I tell people, and it's not so much for other patients, it's maybe more for like the med students, the interns, nursing staff. Medicine is like detective work, right? And so the better the detective you are, the better provider you will become. And part of that, or a big part of it, is listening to your patients. And when we started working here, that's one of the complaints that people had is doctors don't just seem to listen. They kind of, no, talk big words, and they give me a paper and I get a medicine, and I didn't even tell them my story, right? And so I took care of a family here in town, and they ended up having some problems or issues, and they had to move away. And the dad, or the man of the house, right before he left, he started to have some swallowing difficulties, right? And so when you move, you're going to see a GI consult, maybe get an EGD, because again, we did those scopes before. You may be having reflux, so I'm going to put you on an acid suppression, but the important thing is you need to follow through with GI. And so they moved to Nebraska, I think, and kind of disappeared for about 3 months, 6 months, and then the wife talks to my nurse, and she's in tears, and my nurse says, "Can you please talk to her? She's totally frustrated. None of the other doctors are listening. They've been just kind of thrown around. They see neurology, they see GI, they see this, they see that. Everybody says it's somebody else's problem." And so I figured, what can I do over the phone? But anyway, I end up talking to the lady, and she's obviously crying and telling me her story. And so I said, "Is your husband there?" "Yes, he's here. Do you want to talk to him?" "Yeah, please let me talk to him." And this is about probably 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. And so the gentleman comes on the phone, and he just is totally slurring his speech. Just sounds like he's intoxicated, barely can talk. And so I said, "I don't want to insult you, but have you been drinking already this morning?" "No." Why? Why do you ask?" "I guess the change had occurred so slow that nobody noticed it."
Mm.
"I don't know." And I said, "With your speech," and then he gave me his other symptoms. I said, "You may have something called ALS. You need to go see your neurologist and tell him that's what we need to focus on." And about 4 weeks later, the wife calls back, and he was under hospice care at that point, but he had the diagnosis of ALS. So to me, that story is important because it took listening for me to help, right? I didn't take a special blood test, an x-ray, a CAT scan. It just took me, I really didn't want to talk to her because I felt helpless. You know, if they're seeing every specialty under the sun and nobody's giving them answers, how am I going to make a difference over the phone, right? And I was kind of hesitant, and my nurse talked to her, okay, and it ended up being very, very helpful for them.
Yeah.
So
Supreme trust in you as a person. Yeah.
so
I gotta give you so I have one story, and it's kind of a powerful story that it puts everything into perspective. It was like back when we were doing OB. OB is always kind of a good field. And I was on call that day, super, super busy, stressful day. It's a complete team effort. Anyway, so it was in the ER. We had a patient. We're just busy. We get this call, and the call goes out. And there's a patient coming in who's pregnant, and they're bleeding and they're cramping. And they're coming from so-and-so town. So I kind of knew who that person was going to be because I know your patients pretty well. And I also knew that for this patient, the high-risk condition was she was supposed to deliver in Denver the following week. It was going to be too much for us to handle. So, and the downside was it was like bad weather. So it was like blizzarding. It was some kind of terrible weather where basically couldn't transfer anybody out. So anyway, at that time, Vicki Cox was our OB nurse, and luckily she was here. She's really good. So middle of the ER, I told her, "Hey, Vicki, here's what's coming in here. There's a condition. We got to get ready for a C-section. So we go back into the room and get the whole operating room ready, called Children's Hospital. And so finally, about 20 minutes later, because the ETA was like 10 minutes, whatever. So we're back there just waiting. It's like, what is going on here? It's like, this patient needs to be here right now. It's going to be a super, high risk, intense C-section. What's going on here? So we're all scrubbed up. I just couldn't take it. And then finally, somebody comes in and says, hey, Dr. Pimentel, your patient is here. But she says she's not going to come back until you go back and talk to her in person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it's nuts. I mean, what could possibly be holding up this patient going back in here? Because I don't know, but she's not going to come back until you go out there and talk to her in person. I'm like, all right. So I go ahead and take off my scrub top, and I told Vicky I'll be back in a bit. So I come out of the OB room and go around the corner. And so who do you think I saw there? Just kind of like, what do you think I saw? Who was this person? It was super amazing at that time at the Catholic Church. It was Father Bob. He was her Catholic priest. And what she said was, I'm not going to go back and have a pray with me and Father Bob. And of course, I knew him from Mass. I'm like, I really went speechless. I'm like, I did not expect to see a priest here and me talking to the priest right now, just like completely out of the ordinary. So we did a prayer, and then they have to get ready for the operating room. I go back, and Vicky said, "What's going on? What's the problem?" And I'm like, "You know what, Vicky? I told her it's going to be completely okay." And so I did the whole C-section, all of it. It was perfect. There was like no problems with it, and it was just like, it was a really good experience because you're doing medicine, and you kind of lose fact that yes, this is like huge, but sometimes other people have the right priorities. And in reality, the patient had it right, and she was right about everything. We had it a little bit wrong. Yes, it is important, but that really is the highest priority right there. Anyways, about literally 2 weeks ago, I saw her back again with now her daughter. She's like, I don't know, like 20 years old. And we went back and just talked about it. And she goes, you still remember that? I'm like, I will always remember that. So that, something like that, that's why you do medicine here. If it was at Denver,
It would not have happened.
well, it may have happened, but I wouldn't have known who the Catholic priest was.
Yeah.
But this is the same Catholic priest that I see myself when I go to church.
Yeah.
It's like, it just kind of goes, it's personal, and it's just what makes a small town just different.
Yeah. Well, and the patient had that connection to you that she requested it, right?
Right.
I mean, in Denver, it probably would have been just whoever was on call for OB that day where there is no connection. You're trying to guess man or woman. I don't know. Who am I going to see?
Right.
So for all those reasons, it probably wouldn't have happened, at least not that way.
And there's more examples
tons
of
of
that,
stories.
but that's just one that it's just like, I'll never forget that.
Yeah, very profound. I think it's a good example of like putting the person before the patient. Oh man, that was great. So, couple fun questions before we go. What's something people in the community would be surprised to learn about you? I mean, you've been here a long time, so maybe they know a lot. But
Wow.
we have a lot of new people in our community. So what might they think is interesting about you?
I don't know. I guess I will always be a farmer at heart. Anytime I have time off, spend time with family, obviously, there's no question about that. But one of the ways you decompress to minimize the burnout is you do things you enjoy. And so I have friends that run, they have farms, they run cattle, they do work on their pickup trucks, semis, all this. And so you can find me in some shop somewhere with my hands greasy working on something, or branding newborn calves, or vaccinating them if there's any vaccinations to be done. If I'm around, they always want me to do it because they think you're the doctor, you vaccinate. I really enjoy that part. I think if I had not been driven to go to med school, I would have probably stayed locally, and I would have followed in my dad's footsteps, continue with that agriculture background. And it's always going to be in my blood. And if there's any free time and I need to do something, that's what I truly enjoy. Yeah, that's what I truly enjoy.
Wow, something different about me. I think pretty much everything about me's out there already.
Yeah.
I really don't know what would surprise somebody out there. I guess I personally, my free time I like to stay active and just, try different things. Try different things. That's kind of my approach to life. So yeah, I think I don't have anything exciting in there. I'll be making that up.
What's the newest thing you've tried?
The newest thing I've tried, I guess, I'm not a rancher like Perez is, but I do know one thing: I can put a rubber band around a bull or a steer. It was funny though, because when we came out, we did vasectomies.
Mm-hmm.
So my wife's in the San Luis Valley, and they do a lot of ranching and stuff up there. And you go out, you hang out with people, and they're testing you a little bit. So they guys, hey, you want to go ahead and help me band? I'm like, sure. It's got a little bit tricky though. You got to go ahead and get this, what is that little caliper deal? You got that rubber band in there. So he gives it to me, and I went ahead and do it. So how'd you know? I'm like, it's kind of a Baz. It's kind of like a vasectomy, but it's not.
Yeah.
So it was like, he was surprised. I'm like, okay, it's a different thing, but same kind of deal here.
You know,
So
bend the ear or the nose.
right, exactly. But I would say, I just do stuff out there.
Just
I mean,
try it.
people see me out there on the road bike. I mean, I'm a road cyclist. I go to Rotary Club. I like to go hunt. I'm just want to be active.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So over the 25 years together, what's one thing that you guys have learned from each other?
Tolerance. We've known each other since elementary school. I mean,
Yeah.
we didn't really start. It's a small school. Again, our graduating class was 61. But I don't think we really started talking truthfully or seriously with each other probably not until high school. Because then at that point, I think we saw in each other that we were both kind of lost and clueless on higher education, but we thought we would want to pursue it. And so I think that's kind of what started the bond with us is, I'm just as lost as you are. And maybe if you can make it, then that means I can make it, and then we would use each other for kind of assistance, support.
I think the biggest thing is just there's different approaches to life. Everybody's a different approach to it. And just kind of seeing that it might be the same problem, but two people approach it differently can both have a good outcome. And sometimes you need a different perspective on the same problem. Like in medicine specifically, there were many like C-section cases and back in the ER where sometimes you kind of get stuck and the next guy comes in and helps you out and vice versa.
Yeah.
So I think just having different perspectives on the same problem is a very, very good thing.
Mm-hmm. So before we go, if you would leave our community with one message about the future of healthcare here or patient care, what would you like to tell the community?
I mean, I would hope it continues.
Yeah.
We're trying to make it so that way there is more of us providers to take over when we're done, whether we retire on our own or I saw a patient I hadn't seen in 20 some years and she, oh my gosh, Dr. Perez, when are you going to retire? So I must be looking pretty old. So yeah, I mean, I think the community, the hospital, really the staff, be really proactive in trying to find recruits, right? We need to recruit the right people to come and continue what we've been working with here.
For the future of healthcare, huh?
Yeah.
Well, the future of healthcare, some things will never change. Once again, I keep going back to this. The profession is still very hands-on. I don't think AI is going to go ahead and take over healthcare. It's impossible. It's going to help you a little bit, but you still need good nurses, good providers. So realize that, and as a community, just like with us, get creative and find, a way to bring back the people that will thrive in this community. I mean, they're definitely going to be few in numbers, but they're out there. So it's going to take a matter of just getting all your resources together. I give people credit, 25 years ago because they knew what they were doing. I mean, the contract that was given to us, you could definitely tell they're looking for a certain battery of requirements and you have to meet those. And I think it's up to us to go ahead and do the same thing. What do we want and how do we get it? because it's not going to be easy, but it's definitely doable. I think back when Norbert Omach was the board president, he flat out said it. We've had no success bringing doctors in here. How do we do it? And they did it. So we're back at the same challenge.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that makes it more favorable now is since we have kind of evolved the practice. Before, it was very daunting to go out there and find a provider that was able to do everything, right? And now the hospital environment is set up where it is more compartmentalized, more specialized. And so you're still going to do family medicine, but the spectrum or the breadth of it is not going to be quite as scary. And so I think it'll make it a little more palatable for people to come out here and at least give us a look, right? Where when we would talk to people, you're going to be on call, but every other day for OB, and you're doing C-sections, and you're doing your own anesthesia, and you're still, it was a lot to swallow. And I think now with our current situation, it definitely provides a better picture for them to say, I could see myself doing that. So that's going to hopefully improve the chances of recruiting.
I will say a couple of more things about that. So, one thing about the future is that you need to go ahead and make it a priority to have like a system where you have continuity. If you look at some of the neighboring towns, there where you could be at 10 years ago if you're not careful, having like revolving doctors, revolving nurses, it's just not good patient care. So I think knowing what you want and don't want, you don't want that system. Therefore, do as much as you can to bring people in that will stick. That's number one. Number two is it's going to be different. You probably having a doctor for 40 years may not happen. Maybe a 20-year doctor would be a good thing. But having somebody change it every 6 months, you don't want that. The other thing is don't settle for what you've had. You have to kind of change with the future. We're interviewing like these CEO candidates, and I asked them, how do we go ahead and get ourselves to the level of Colby, or even Ray? And one answer was, we can never get there. I'm like, you know what? You're not the right guy. I mean, this town does not want to hear that we're going to be second fiddle. I think we need to go ahead and do what we can to be at the forefront within your own limitations. But you can't limit yourselves, because if we go ahead and just like we've never done surgeries here, we're going to fail. We have to go ahead and change, and we have to bring in the surgeries, the new services. We cut OB a few years ago. We haven't really replaced it. We need to go ahead and always be looking for new services. And part of that is looking for those people in leadership that have that vision also. So you have to kind of keep growing and not staying complacent, because if you do, you're going to shut down.
Yeah, it won't survive.
Yeah.
So yes, somebody that's excited about expanding services, and
Right.
maybe you're a recruit that likes to see the big picture and is like, I would love to help build that at Kit Carson County.
Right. Rather than that's impossible,
Yeah.
because you're not even giving it a chance.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Yes. Well, is there anything else you'd like to leave our community with?
I think we've said enough.
Well, thank you guys.
Good luck editing.
Yeah. Have a great day.
We'll see you.